go ahead and turn in your Bibles to the book of Luke. We're going to go to the 4th chapter, and we'll be reading pieces from there. But if you would go ahead and just open it up, we'll be reading right from verse 31 all the way to verse 44. But before we go all the way back to the year, I don't know, something like 35, 36 AD, let's go just back a little bit, just a little bit from now. Goodness, now it's 123 years to 1903. Anybody remember 1903? No? Rick? 1903 to Dayton, Ohio. There's two brothers there that lived in Dayton, Ohio. And they took a machine that they had sort of thrown together in the back room of a bicycle shop. They took it to the sand dunes of North Carolina, and they flew. For the first time ever, somebody had powered flight. They took off from the sand dunes of North Carolina, landed again. 36 meters. If you've ever gone to a football field before or seen one, right in the middle is about 50 meters. About 2/3 of that. Less than a really decent chip shot of golf. That's how far they flew. It was amazing. We've been kind of dreaming for that for years and years, and these guys did it on a cold Thursday morning with 5 witnesses to this first flight. 5 people. They then packed everything up and they went home to Ohio. And they went and they rented a piece of property from a local businessman. They rented 100 acres of property, which is pretty big. If you think they only went 38 meters, then they went to 100 acres. They wanted a lot of space. And so they rented this, and this is where the story gets a little bit weird. Because they kept flying. They kept flying over and over again and perfecting and working on their machine and adjusting it and making it better and better. For 2 years, they worked on this thing. And they kept flying and they kept flying. At this little field that was 12 kilometers outside of their hometown, outside of where their bicycle shop was. And they would go out there, and there happened to be a train or a trolley that went sort of interurban between Dayton and some other nearby town, and it would go right by that field that they worked at. They had a little shed on the field. They'd get off. There they'd go and work. And so it meant that for 2 years, people on that trolley had an opportunity to see this marvelous feat of engineering that nobody else in the history of the planet had ever seen before. And that was human-powered flight. Just imagine commuting from point A to point B and seeing something that astonishing. It would be like, going past the SpaceX rocket launching station every day on your way to work, and once in a while you see a takeoff. That's the level of amazement. Okay? Just phenomenal. So you would think that this nearby town of Dayton would celebrate this, right? Do something about it. Write about it. Come on down to Dayton. We've got flying machines. Get some tourism in here. Get the photographers out here, right? Nothing. For 2 years. Not a thing. People would see it. They would go by, they'd talk about it at dinner time. Never once did it get written about, put in the newspaper, or anything. Not a single newspaper reporter was sent. No one was sent out there to investigate. Nothing. And when they later questioned the city editor of the Daytona Daily News, or the Dayton Daily News, he said, quote, "Frankly, none of us believed it." None of us believed it. The publisher of that paper was a man named James Cox, who later went on to become the governor of the state of Ohio and actually even ran for president. He was not a fool, but he said, frankly, none of us believed it. And so nobody was sent to go and look. 12 kilometers away, there was even a train that went right by it and nobody went. About 200 miles north of Dayton, in a town near Cleveland, there lived a man named Amos Root. And Amos Root wasn't a politician. He didn't edit a newspaper. He wasn't even into engineering. He was a beekeeper. He was a good beekeeper. He published a scientific journal, essentially, on the topics and the ideas of beekeeping. But that's what he was. But he heard about this. And so he went to go and investigate what is going on in Dayton, Ohio. So he wrote a letter to the Wright brothers. He was a wealthy man, so he got into his car. And when I say car, it was actually just a sort of gas-powered carriage. Think horse carriage with no roof. That's what he drove. 200 miles, not a train, nothing like that, over not paved roads, but you get my drift here? 200 miles to go and see it. And he's seen it. And he wrote about it in his little magazine about bees. He offered his article to Scientific American, and they rejected the article. Why would they publish anything like this? It's nonsense. And when the city wouldn't go 12 kilometers, this guy, 200 miles, who would go and see it. What's the difference between these two? Dayton, Ohio, James Cox, the rest of the people that lived there, they already had the Wright brothers in the box. They're bicycle guys, bicycle repairmen. They build bikes. They have a shop. We know who they are. We know what they do. I don't know what you guys are talking about with this flying machine stuff. But 200 miles away, Amos Root heard about a flying machine and he said, I have to know more. And so the very first article written about this amazing human achievement was in a beekeeping magazine. Can you believe that? The first part of this sermon is the first part of Luke 4, when Jesus went to Nazareth and he was in a box. The second part of this sermon is when Jesus goes to Capernaum and they have no box to put him in. My title today is Two Towns, Two Responses. 2 towns and 2 responses. And Luke puts these two stories together for us on purpose. In Luke 4:31-32, he went down to Capernaum, a city in Galilee, and was teaching them on the Sabbath. And they were astounded at his teaching because he spoke with authority. It doesn't take a careful reading of Luke 4 for us to see that this is a contrasting story. There's no break between these two narratives whatsoever. We go from Nazareth to Capernaum. We see Luke is saying, this is what happens when you put God and his plans in a box that you think you know what they are. And this is what happens when you open your eyes. One of these two cities is a city that's set on a hill. It's secluded. It's a little bit defensible. It's self-reliant. It's self-contained. The other one of these cities sits right on the edge of the Sea of Galilee. It actively trades with the Greek and Roman people who are nearby. It's active in what's going on at the time. And the way it receives Jesus is quite different. Both of these towns contain Jewish people who have devout faith, who follow the Torah, who meet in the synagogue. Both of the stories we'll see here today happen and start in the synagogue and on the Sabbath. It's filled with people who are focused on the things of God, but who are looking at it two different ways and respond to it in two very, very different ways. And we see this response quite quickly. In the opening of Nazareth, when Jesus is in the synagogue, it says that the people were amazed. That's the Greek word thaumazo, and it means a sense of wonder and of marvel. They were amazed. In Capernaum, as we've already read, the people are astounded, which means the same thing, just turned up quite a bit. Astounded means to be be filled with a sense of wonder, but to the degree of utter amazement that one nearly loses one's mental composure. Have you ever heard anyone say, "I just lost it," or "the crowd just lost it? It was amazing"? Yeah. That's the response of the people in Nazareth. Something is happening that is so unique and amazing that they can barely contain their ability to comprehend what's going on. Same God in a synagogue on the Sabbath, two very different responses to what he's doing. Very different responses. So, this is in Capernaum. This is a 50-kilometer journey from Nazareth. After traveling north, Jesus would have come to a Roman road, and he would have taken that road probably over to Tiberias, to Magdala, and then over to Capernaum. It would have taken several days, maybe a week, depending on how much he was walking. Even in the summer days, there's no way you could do this in one walk. And on top of that, Jesus is alone. There's no crowd. The disciples have not been called. He has left his baptism. He has gone to the wilderness. He has been there for 40 days. He's tempted by Satan. After that, he goes to his hometown to minister. That doesn't go very well. And now there's a long and lonely and emotional walk, I would put it to you, for Jesus from his hometown over to Capernaum, where his ministry is really about to go. I would say it's probably a tear-filled walk. A walk with a lot of wonder. I would say that phrase would be going over in his heart, and if I can just change it a bit, Nazareth, Nazareth, how oft I would gather you under my wings, as a hen would gather her brood, but you would not. Nazareth refused. And down he walks down the path, and eventually his feet lead him to this village of Capernaum. It's at least 1 week later, because it's again the Sabbath. He left Nazareth on the Sabbath, and now we see him again doing what is his custom, which is being in the synagogue on the Sabbath, teaching. So I'm going to go through and compare a little bit what happens here with what happened at Nazareth. Not by going and reading what happened at Nazareth, but point by point, comparing with my previous sermon. First of all, Jesus ministers to the people. He does this in both situations. In both scenarios, Jesus ministered the exact same way as he did in Nazareth. He goes in, he sits down, and he teaches the people. And this ministry that he has to the people is one that comes from pure love, true love. Really, it comes from a love that can only come from a creator, that can only come from one who spoke someone and something into existence. That's the level of care he has for these people. And so there he is, and he's ministering to them. That happens in Nazareth, and here it happens in Capernaum. And let's read in verse 33 to 35. In the synagogue, there was a man who had the spirit of an unclean demon, and he cried out with a loud voice, "Leave us alone. What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth?" I wonder if that was biting right there. when the demon reminds him, you're from that hometown that rejected you and who just tried to kill you. Jesus of Nazareth, have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God. But Jesus rebuked him, saying, be quiet and come out of him. Then the demon, throwing the man down before them, came out of him without doing him any harm. So the demon was cast out. It was silenced and cast out. And the man who was afflicted by this unclean spirit was not harmed in the episode of what happened. Those who were sick, those who were afflicted with unclean spirits, all of them were healed by Jesus. Remember, the point of Luke's gospel is to answer the question, who is Jesus? And slowly the people start to understand who he is. And we, the reader, are slowly understanding. And here it is, right in the 4th chapter, we again have an unclean spirit stating, I know who you are. You're the Son of God. You're the Most High, the Holy One. We see that there. We've seen it with Satan questioning him, if you are the Son of God. And all of this starts off by Jesus hearing a voice from heaven saying, you are my Son, and in you I am well pleased. But Jesus silences this unclean spirit because it wasn't the right time. Yes, the demons know exactly who he is, but the people need to know who he is. And they need to come to an understanding of who he is. Not here, but experientially. With their heart, they need to experience and understand and believe, yes, this is the Messiah. And to have an unclean spirit spouting off that, an unclean spirit, a spirit that's typically spouting lies and falsehoods, that's not exactly the kind of witness that you want. And so Jesus silences it and sends it out. But we can kind of look a little bit in this, in what's happening here, because he says, I know who you are. You're the Son of God. You know, mysticism, magic, witchcraft, dabbling with unclean spirits goes back all the way to the beginning of time. All the way back. And what that actually means is we have a lot of writings about this kind of thing. And in those writings, when people talk about and teach how you commune with unclean spirits, how you get power over demons and have them do your bidding and this kind of thing, this is what they teach you. And specifically, this line shows up in manuscripts from that time. I know who you are. It's this ability for a human being to claim power over something. Labeling something makes it understandable. Let me help this make sense to you. When something is unknown, it's scary. It's frightening. There's a book we used to read when the kids were young, and it was called Scaredy Squirrel. And Scaredy Squirrel was scared of the unknown. That was what it was scared of. And the point of the book was, it is unknown, but you can know it. And when you know it, it's not so scary. And that's kind of the way it is. And in fact, in psychology today, we're taught ways to deal with anxiety and depression is to, when you feel emotions, label them. Know what they are. When you have fear, know it's fear and label it like that. When you are dealing with shame, or when you're dealing with reticence or whatever, just give it a name. Once you give it a name, you've got some control over it. Okay, so what does that mean? It sort of means that that's a little bit what this demon was trying to do, was take authority over Jesus. That's not a stretch. That's not difficult to understand. We know that the powers of hell are going to be fighting against Jesus and what he wants to do. So and then of course, Jesus just said, like, I don't even need to name who you are. Be quiet and get out. And it was done. And it was taken out. It rebuked him, but it left the man unharmed. That's the one that Jesus was ministering to. And I love how Luke leaves that in there for us, because we can focus a lot on this back and forth with the unclean spirit, but that's really not that relevant. What's relevant is the man who was afflicted, and that one is now free. And not only free, but unharmed. And Jesus ministered to him. Luke is trying to help us understand then who Jesus is and how Jesus wants the people to know who he is, and he's not going to give them a shortcut. Continuing on, I'm going to jump over to verse 38. After leaving the synagogue, he entered Simon's house. Now, this is Simon Peter's house. Simon's mother-in-law was suffering from a high fever, and they asked him about her. Then he stood over her and rebuked the fever, and it left her. Same thing, he rebuked the unclean spirit, he rebukes the fever, and it leaves. This is a perfectly normal situation here. Jesus is at the synagogue. Okay, church is over. What happens after church is over? Fellowship. Right? We get together, we break bread, feed one another, etc. And so Simon brings Jesus to his home. But there's something we can pick up in here as well. Simon has lost his father. You might ask, why? How do you know that? Well, because his mother-in-law is with him. So he's lost his father-in-law. His mother-in-law is living with them because she's a widow. She needs to be taken care of. Another thing that's important that you need to know here is that hospitality was always, it was a very important thing. And Simon has said, I will bring Jesus to my home. And that sort of meant that he and his wife were going to take on the responsibility of providing hospitality to Jesus. And then it says in here that she was suffering, and they asked him about her. They talked to Jesus about the mother-in-law. Do you see this? What do you think about this? What do you like? Can something happen for her? I like how it doesn't just say like he asked him to heal her, or Jesus, can you heal her and I'll feed you. He just says, this is my mother-in-law. She has a fever. She's sick right now. Luke actually says that this was a high fever, which Mark and Matthew don't do that. But Luke's the physician. And so high fever, this is, you guys ready to learn some Greek? You'll already know Greek. The word they use here for high, for fever, is megas. It was a mega fever. And that was a clinical definition. There's high fevers and there were low fevers. We call them low-grade fevers and high fevers today as well. This was a bad one. This is a life-threatening fever. And that's what Luke's trying to point out here. It's a big deal, what she had. And Jesus heals her. Look, going to verse 40. This is all the ministry of Jesus that I'm talking about. Verse 40. Any who were sick with various kinds of diseases, he laid his hands on them and he cured them. Moreover, the demons also came out of many, shouting, "You are the Son of God." But he rebuked them and would not allow them to speak because they knew he was the Messiah. So what this set of verses here is saying, like the healing of Simon's mother-in-law and the healing of, and the casting out of the unclean spirit that happened in the synagogue, this happened a lot. He did many of these. These weren't isolated, but many people came and Jesus ministered to all of them. It was just more and more and more. Not just one or two, but any who were sick were brought and hearts were mended. Jesus is no respecter of persons, and any who came that were sick, he healed. And he silences the demons again. Again, not robbing the people of that opportunity to know personally who he is. This is the way Jesus ministers today. We cannot hope to hold on to or step into a walk with God just based off of what someone has said or just off of something we have read and we think we understand. This is an experiential thing. It's a life-changing thing. And it's one where we change our entire orientation towards him. Not a little, but everything. One doesn't get to heaven by knowing Jesus is the Son of God. Satan knows it and trembles. This is an experiential thing. You have to step into the walk with God, or it's your response that really is important. And if you compare this with the response of Nazareth and the response of Capernaum, you'll see where we're going. So just like in Nazareth, Jesus uncovered the hearts of those he was speaking with. Just his being there uncovered their hearts. Just the words he said and how he taught and what he taught laid bare the emotions and the thoughts and the inner parts of those who he ministered to. He healed them of sickness. He cast out demons. He did so much there. All of this on a holy day, the Sabbath. And so, just as in Nazareth, he does the exact same thing. And in doing this, it takes people and moves them to a place of decision. What is he doing in their lives? How is this challenging their understanding of God and challenging their understanding of the Messiah? How is it threatening their personal power and identity? Like, for example, we see later in the book of Acts how people were using others who had unclean spirits to their own personal advantage. Was that the case here? I don't know. But what was being shaken up and what was being broken down? And really the question is, are these people going to respond with curiosity, or are they going to respond with self-centered defensiveness? Are they going to have an emotion and a response that sort of leans in a little bit to like, what is going on here? Or are they going to take Jesus and put him inside of a box and say, this is what you are and nothing more? Verse 36, they were all astounded and they kept saying to one another, what kind of word is this? That with authority and power he commands the unclean spirits to come out. What kind of word is this? That jumps out to me as almost bad grammar. Like, what kind of word is this? I already talked about astounded. We know that's a level of amazement that's right to the edge of your mental capacity. It's mind-blowing in reality. The Greek here, though, under word is interesting because it's the word logos. And the word logos is one of those words that has many, many different sorts of meanings. And it's an interesting, almost a sort of philosophical or metaphysical meaning, in that it's the sort of connection between something that's said and the thing that represents that which has been said. Let there be light. There's light. That's the word of God. It's the logos of God, having a desire and a speaking, and there therefore being a response. There's something that happens. Right. His word does not return to him void, but something happens. If we would let it, something happens. The Hebrew word that's really similar to this is the word dabar. Again, it's that sort of word thing, word and effect, that thing together. In Amos 6:3, the prophet condemns the people for rejoicing in a place without knowing God, or without a word, or with nothing, with no thing. And he calls that place that they conquered Lo Dabar. Dabar, again, being word or thing, and lo is the Hebrew word for no. So he says the place that you're at, what you're rejoicing over, is nothing. It's nothing. But there is a thing. There is a word. There is a truth. There is an action. And what you think you have is nothing. And you should see the connection there to Ecclesiastes as well at the same time. What you think you have and you have accomplished, it's Lodabar. It's nothing. And so the people are saying, what thing is this? What word is this? How can he speak and there be things? Now, what is the thing? Well, they go on and explain he's calling out unclean spirits. But I also put it to you that there's something else going on inside. There's conviction that's stepping inside. There's things being laid bare in the hearts of humanity there as they're listening to Jesus teach in the temple. Most of the time, when you would go to the synagogue, the rabbi would just read a passage of the Torah, and then he would explain what all of the other really important rabbis who have been over the last 500 years thought that that meant and tried to sort of apply it to your life. But Jesus didn't do that. This is his word. He lays it bare. And there's something about the way that he taught the people from his word that did something on the inside that didn't happen in any other way. If we would read this in that same spirit, the word would do something. It will do something in your heart. It will. It can't help because it's inextricably linked. The logos, that power, it's just the word and the thing. There will be a cause and an effect. There will be. And so Jesus spoke and things happened. It did things in their heart. They were astounded. It did things in their bodies. They were healed. And it did things in the spirit in that it brought freedom to people who were previously spiritually oppressed. What kind of word is this? And really, it's the kind of words that will do things in our lives if we would but shema, if we would but listen. Listen. Nazareth did not listen. They heard, but all of those words went into the box. And it turned into them to be blasphemy. But when the hearts of these people were uncovered, how did they respond? What did they do? I put it to you that they were curious. And I know that that sounds like a silly word, but honestly, I can't find a better word for it. Just like Amos Root, when he heard about what was going on with these Wright brothers, these crazy bike makers who thought that they were flying, he had to go and look. He had to. He was compelled to. He was curious. There's something that drew him to understanding what was going on. If we would just approach life with that level of curiosity, what is God going to do next? What effect will his word have next? I want to be there and I want to be a part of it. So the people then respond. Jesus ministers, he uncovers their hearts, and then the people respond. We know what happened in Nazareth. What happens here in Capernaum? Peter's mother-in-law, Luke 4 and 9, immediately she got up and began to serve them. She's freed, she's healed, and immediately she gets up. And why does she serve them? In the ancient Near East, hospitality was of the utmost importance. In fact, it was an honor and honorable. Not in the way to say, oh, I'm honored to have you for dinner, just a little. It was a big, big deal. It meant so much to be able to provide for somebody. Not to mention to be able to provide and feed the rabbi who came and who spoke at the synagogue that day. That's a big deal. And so normally the honor of being able to serve would go on the oldest adult female in the home. So if she was unwell, then her daughter would do it. But the oldest would get the right of first refusal, essentially. So she is healed, and immediately she gets up and she starts that response. I am honored to be able to serve you. It's such a tiny little line, but there is so much emotion packed up in that one line. What is my response when God heals me, when he gets me through something, when I get onto the other side of that wilderness or that dark time or that difficult time? What is my response? Is it service? Or is it not? So how did the people respond? Well, the people responded by serving Jesus. Luke 4:37, and news about him began to reach every place in the region. Okay, there was no news reporter there. There were news reporters over in Dayton, Ohio, and they did nothing. There were no news reporters here. And somehow the words of Jesus get just blasted abroad everywhere in the region. The whole place. Travelers to Capernaum would pick up the news and they would take it down to Magdala, or they would take it over to Tiberias, or take it to any of the other towns surrounding them. You have to come and see what has happened. All those people going back and forth on the trolley, and they would talk about it, but nobody believed it. And nobody went and investigated, and nobody from Dayton came out. Nazareth. Nobody cares. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? And yet it gets just broadcasted abroad to everywhere, in all the villages and all the towns, and it just spreads everywhere. How did the people respond? They responded by spreading the good news. By that spreading of the good news right here prepared for Jesus' further ministry. And the 2 times that he sent his disciples out to go and minister in the towns and the villages, they had already heard something about this Jesus. Because the people at Capernaum responded. They responded, not in disbelief, in belief. Was it full? No. Was it complete? Was their understanding of God and the Messiah complete and end to end? They understood who Jesus? No, they didn't. This was the very beginning of his ministry. But still, they knew something is special. Something is different about this guy. There's something happening here, and I want to be a part of it. And I want others to know about it too. So the people responded by spreading the good news. Luke 4:40, and as the sun was setting, all those caring for any who were sick with various kinds of diseases brought them to him. If you've noticed, I've skipped bits and pieces of these verses up until now, and I'm filling them in. And this is one of the responses. Notice the start of the verse, as the sun was setting. Why is that important? It marks the end of the Sabbath. The Sabbath is sunset to sunset. Days at the time were sunset to sunset, not 12 p.m. to 12 p.m. midnight. They had no way to figure out what midnight was. But everybody knew the end of the day because the sun is gone. So that's when it happens. So at the end of the Sabbath, that's when you can pick up sick people and walk a long ways and take sick people to Jesus and say, can you heal them? And you're not breaking the law, and you're not violating any of the rules of the Sabbath, and no one's going to be upset and arrest you. As soon as these devout Jewish people, same type of people as were at Nazareth, as soon as they could, they took the sick to Jesus. As soon as they could, the people responded to Jesus by bringing others to him, by bringing other people along, by involving this. Was again, do they understand him? No. Were they calling him the Messiah at this stage? No. Did they grasp everything? No. But when he came in and he spoke to that unclean spirit, and when he healed Simon's mother-in-law, they knew something's different. When they heard his voice and the way he spoke and the way he preached and he talked in the synagogue, they knew something is different. Something is different. And instead of throwing him over a cliff, they flock to him and they bring others with them. That's what they do. He's challenged them. He's challenged them with their teaching. He placed conviction in their heart. And how did they respond? They wanted to get closer to him and bring others with them. And 4:42, at daybreak he departed and he went to a deserted place. So Jesus wakes the morning after the Sabbath. And the morning after a very different reception from the people than what he had just received in Nazareth the week before. What does he need to do? He needs to pray. He needs to spend time with his heavenly Father. Jesus was fully God and fully man. There are emotions going through his mind that could take him very different directions. He goes to his hometown, they reject him. He goes to this other town that is more Hellenistic town, and they not only accept him, but they respond to him very positively, leaning into him, bringing others to him, wanting to know him more. That breaks you up inside. That has to hurt. It's a little bit like being kicked out of your family and then being accepted into another family that you're not related to. That's hard. Jesus could have responded many ways. He could have spoken oracle against those terrible Nazarenes. He could have preached against, don't ever be that way. He could have done so many things at this part with people, but he leaves the people and he goes to a deserted place to pray. This word deserted is eramon. This is the same type of place that he went to after his baptism. Not the same place, the same type of place. It's a quiet place. It's in the wilderness. It's away from distraction. It's away from the crowd. It's away from the people. It's away from those things that pump up your ego. And it's away from those things that make you feel good about yourself. And he takes everything he's feeling to God. All of it. And what happens? Well, the crowds, they began looking for him. And when they reached him, they tried to keep him from leaving them. Jesus was pretty popular already after one Sabbath. One city wants to throw him over a cliff, never to see him again. The other one is begging them to stay. Won't you please stay? What a contrast. How do the people respond? They respond by seeking him, by looking for him. And not only that, and this alone right here would preach, but they follow him into the wilderness. That's where they go, to the lonely place, to the desolate place. And that's where they find Jesus. Oh, we don't like the wilderness. But the response of the people was serving, speaking, seeking, and then ultimately bringing others to Jesus. Sister Ruby, if you would come. These two narratives, they show two very different responses from people. And we are those people. Luke is walking us through and understanding who Jesus is, and by its very nature, when he's explaining to us and showing us who Jesus is and bringing us to that place of experience, he's also showing us who we are, what choices we have, how we can respond, and what we can do. And yes, these are two responses that really are on the extremes. One side wants to take Jesus' life, silence him, kill him, put him in a box. There's nothing you can add to me in my life. The other one doesn't want him to leave. We need more of you. As soon as we can possibly get to you, we will get to you. As soon as the sun goes down. There are two extremes. Where are we on that? And let me tell you, this is not a I'm approaching Jesus type sermon only, but absolutely, these people are just learning who he is. But this is something that we deal with and struggle with throughout our Christian walk, because we naturally build boxes. It's what we do. We're trying to understand the world. We're trying to understand our experiences. We're trying to understand what's happening. It's hard to pay attention to all this stuff at once. And so we build boxes for God, and we put him and containerize him. But we leave him in there so often. And I want you to understand, I'm not preaching and asking you to have a throwdown and blowout revival in life every day. It says here that the people were astounded. They were amazed. Amazed to the edge of mental capability. What I'm asking you to do is stay there as much as you can. Get curious about the things of God. Don't be on the trolley of life going back and forth in front of that field and amazing things happening, and you're just somehow putting it into a box and somehow putting it into a container saying, oh, that's just, I don't know. It's easy to do. Even Peter eventually put Jesus into that box, and when they questioned him, don't you know that man? And he's like, I've never heard of him before. What box was he in? The box of fear. I could get killed. God can't help me in this situation. Jesus can't help me. He's in there right now being tried. There's no way he can work outside of the box that is that home. I'm out here by myself. This is a man who lived, breathed, worked with Jesus for 3 years, watched so many miracles. If Simon Peter could do it, I can do it. I can put Jesus in a box. I can containerize him there. And I can lose my curiosity. And I can lose my wonder. And I can lose that sense of, what else can he do? Every day, we can choose that curiosity. These 2 stories are bookended as well. We have 2 stories, contrasting response, but on either side of those stories is time alone with God. Jesus in the wilderness. You want to know how you stay curious? That's how you do it. And maybe that's what curiosity does. It spends time with Jesus. I just want to get to know him a little bit more. Think of the very first time that you had affection for somebody, a crush. You want to know. You're curious. You want to know everything about them. What are they like? What are they not like? What do they do? How do they speak? What goes on? What do they enjoy? What happens? That's a natural human thing. We do this. We want to know. Marriages that are healthy keep that going. We're always curious about our mate. We want to know what's happening in their lives, what's happening in their minds, how are they developing, what's changing. Same with friends. When you have a good friend, you're naturally curious. How are you doing? What's going on in your life? Think of all the basic questions we ask one another when we meet one another after not seeing each other for a long time. How's that thing going that you were working on? How is this other thing developing in your life? It's curiosity. When you lose the curiosity, you lose the walk. When you lose the walk, you're left behind. Don't be left behind in your walk with God. And don't hear that as me saying God's left you behind, because he hasn't. Nothing's over. But you can lean back into that curiosity again. Get to that place free of distraction, free of anything else, free of all the other things that are trying to rob you of that curiosity. Spend time with him. Spend that time with him. And oh, won't he do you good? And just as these 2 stories are bookended with prayer, I would like us to go there now. Let's find a place to pray. And I urge you to pray, God, stir up my curiosity about you. Stir it up. Like Moses said to God, I want to know you. Let's pray that here today, God. I want to know you. Show me who you are, God. I want to know you.